Hello, all you scaredy cats and kittens, and welcome to the Two Scaredy Cats Podcast, where we talk about all things paranormal. We're your hostess with the mostess. I'm Stacy.
I'm Kara.
So, Kara, what did you do this weekend? Anything good? Cool?
Yeah,
interesting?
I went and visited Mothman.
I know. I'm so mad at you. We were supposed to go together, and you went without me.
Well,
what's up with that?
I wanted to go see him. I was already in West Virginia for another reason.
Yeah, what were you in West Virginia for?
There was a convention.
Oh, yeah? What was the name of this convention you were at?
SubassaCon.
So did you get to go to any of the shops that are there in town or visit the museum or anything?
Yeah,
cool?
well, for some reason, Sundays, a lot of them are closed, but there were some that were open. Like the Mothman Museum was open because we went to that. And then we went.
Oh, that's cool.
They have a sister store across the street that we went to, and we got some stuff there.
Neat.
I got Mothman root beer.
I saw that in your photo.
Pin. It says, Mothman search team.
Oh, neat. I like that.
And I got,
cool.
They have like a bunch of different cryptids pins that you can get, and I got this little wolf guy. He's named the Snarly Yow. He's a West Virginia cryptid.
A Snarly Yow. Never heard of that.
I haven't heard it, but I was going to look him up.
I was just going to say, yeah, you should look him up. We should do him on one of our future
Apparently,
episodes.
they have so many cryptids in West Virginia.
Really?
Like the Flatwoods Monsters from West Virginia. I didn't realize that. He has a whole... Apparently, you can go visit him, too. Because there's someone at at the statue we were talking to that they all had like Flatwoods Monster shirts on. And they went to go visit him to Flatwoods in West Virginia.
I know there's like all kinds of cool stuff. We just need to make like a West Virginia trip and just hit it all while we're there.
Yeah, we're gonna hang out with Savannah's parents.
There's supposed to be a lot of cool places. How was that hanging out with Savannah's parents?
I mean, it's fine. So I was talking to her mom, and she was telling me like some stories from the house they were in that was haunted. And then she was also telling me, because she knew, so they live about an hour from Point Pleasant, so they're really close there. And they actually knew people who were on the cleanup team for the Silver Bridge.
Oh, really? Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I was like, that's crazy. And she was telling me that the catfish in the Ohio River are like crazy big, and that there were people that like would quit because they would almost get eaten by catfish that were diving in the river trying to find survivors.
Really?
But I think a majority of the people that like got stuck in the river probably got eaten by catfish, which is kind of scary.
Wow. Yeah,
like they're huge, and they would touch their legs when they were diving, and they would freak out, and they'd be like, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. Or they saw it on the news when it happened. They were live back then. That's
pretty cool, though, that we have like a first-hand account of it and stuff. That's neat.
Yeah, about like what was going on there. Because they live by the Ohio River.
Do they?
Well, technically they live in Chesapeake, Ohio, which is right across from
Oh, okay, yeah, the town of Chesapeake. Yeah, they also apparently saw Mothman back in the day too. That there have been
like I said, the whole area.
Yeah.
That whole area is just very infested.
We'll
have to go.
I know. I'm so jealous.
Because there's a coffee shop next to it that sells Mothman cookies, and they were closed.
No way, really? Oh yeah, we have to go back and get a Mothman cookie.
And they have an ice cream store that sells ice cream Mothman stuff. Like
stop.
Like Mothman Sunday.
Really?
Pizza place down there that is like a Mothman pizza.
Stop. That's too crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We got to go back.
Oh, yeah.
We can also do the other.
Sounds neat.
The Flatwoods Monster.
Yeah, really, we could do both of them.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, we didn't do too much this weekend. Unfortunately, we had football weekend because we had to go to the varsity football game, and then I had to watch your brother play. Oh, although Grandma and Grandpa got to come. My dad had COVID for a very long time, and he was in the hospital for over 6 months with complications because of COVID and stuff, and he finally got to come home in July, and he just recently was able to go out again and stuff, but he he's in a wheelchair, but we were able to get him down, and he was able to watch Kara's brother, my son Sam, play football the other day for high school, so that was exciting. But yeah, that's all I did this weekend. It was football. Not too fun.
It's
lame. Sad. I know. All right, so what do you have for us today?
I am going to be covering the Men in Black phenomenon.
Ooh.
Which leads into the Mothman stuff. Or like the Mothman Museum, because they had a whole section on Men in Black, actually.
Really? Huh.
In the museum.
Really? Interesting.
Well, I'll just share pictures from the little exhibit. It was actually kind of creepy, because they would have like these Men in Black up in the windows outside the Mothman statue.
Oh, yeah? Huh. Weird.
So it was kind of, they would just like be watching you. It was just kind of
weird. Yeah. Huh.
So the book I read today for research purposes it's a book by Nick Redfern, and it was called The Real Men in Black. As in, like, because you know the Men in Black movies.
Yeah, the movies, yes,
which,
I know.
The Men in Black movies are actually based off of this phenomenon.
Really?
Yes.
So
but
there is some
obviously
truth
it's
to
a little different. Yes, it's not exactly a government thing. We'll get into that, though, because there is, like, some stuff, like, where the government actually admits that this is a thing that's going on, that people are impersonating them.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, so, not like the movies, but similar. They often travel in groups of 3 or more, and they are often seen driving 1950s-style black Cadillacs. They are typically dressed in black suits, black fedora, black glasses, black necktie, black socks, black shoes, like, just completely black, and then they have a white shirt, normally. Some Men in Black are indeed the secret eyes and ears of the government departments, but a majority of the accounts are the strange phenomenon. Okay. But, like, obviously the FBI does exist.
Right. Well, yeah.
You know, but a lot of these accounts that I'll be talking about are like the unusual ones that the Men in Black movies are kind of based off of. People think that they are alien. The aliens themselves are a part of the alien kind of thing that's going on, and that they are carefully working to ensure that we never discover the truth about their presence. And then some people believe that they are demons. Oh, there's a lot of. It seems like it's pretty out there for what people are speculating them to be. I was gonna say
we have like a kind of understandable one, and then we have the outlandish one available. It's kind of crazy.
Some think they are time travelers. Also, that's another theory.
I could see that theory.
They are from the far distance future. Yeah. I could see that one more than
the demon one seems a little crazy.
Or they think that they're like supernatural beings that are from a different world.
Oh, okay.
Basically. While we don't really know what they are, we do know that they are very negative beings. People don't have good experiences with them. They typically, normally they show up if you see a UFO, or if you are researching a UFO. That's typically where they show up. Or any sort of strange thing, because they also showed up during the Mothman stuff.
Right.
Just that's the tie-in with the Mothman was there were Men in Black sightings during the Mothman stuff.
Well, remember the weird guy that came in, you said in that coffin-shaped craft?
He is sort of, they didn't mention them, but I know that some people think that he might be related to the Men in Black, the Indrid Cold.
Okay.
But it doesn't follow like an exact kind of copy.
Got you.
Of like normally how they are.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary Heyer, she was a journalist in Point Pleasant, received her own visit from the Men in Black. She was the one that was talking to John Keel a lot. He was the author of the book, The Mothman Prophecies that I read.
Right, yeah.
Yes. So she was talking to him a lot, and then there was a stranger in town where he had black hair, a bowl cut style. He was 5 feet tall, and he had very thick soles on his shoes, which is apparently another thing.
What?
Is that they have really thick soles on their shoes.
Okay, wait a minute. He was only 5 feet tall, so are they trying to say that they're aliens in disguise to look like men? Because you know how aliens are only supposed to be like 3 or 4 feet tall.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's
there's
silly.
Some that are like really tall.
Huh.
So, he went into like the journal office, and he was very entranced by her ballpoint pen. Mary Heyer offered it to him to keep it, but he just started laughing, and then he ran out of the room at high speeds and disappeared, and that was it.
Okay. That's weird.
She started to research more on like the UFOs and the Men in Black and Mothman and all that. And she had another encounter with one. It was in 1967, and a pair of men in black dressed like identical twins. They had the black overcoats, and they turned up in the office of the newspaper. So the men in black that were there, they were like, oh, there's been a lot of UFO activity in the area, and they suddenly asked her a bunch of questions about everything, like what was going on. So they asked, has anyone asked higher not to publish the details of such activity? Then they asked what her response would be if someone had warned her not to print such tales.
Right.
She responded with, I tell them to go to hell.
Oh, wow.
But she's pretty funny. So,
she's
I
pretty
looked down
fiery.
at her. She definitely is. She looked down at her work, and then she looked back up, and they were just both gone. Like, poof, out of the office.
Right.
So I guess they took what she said literally. I guess they were basically trying to,
feel her out to see to see what she would print or not print.
Yeah. So in 1967, the U.S. Air Force secretly acknowledged that the men in black were seemingly always one step ahead of them. Obviously, the U.S. government's be like, people are impersonating us, we better go investigate this.
Right.
There was a U.S. Air Force document that was entitled Impersonations of Air Force Officers. And the persons claiming to represent the Air Force and other defense establishments have contacted citizens who have been cited unidentifiable flying objects. So it's very interesting that the freaking government kind of, because this is like an declassified document that the U.S. So they are at least aware that that's all happening. In July of 1972, Patricia Hyde had an encounter with a Men in Black. Hyde witnessed a strange object flying in the skies of Arcadia, Florida. And she then decided to delve into researching of UFO phenomenon because she just had a sighting. And shortly after her sighting, she was confronted by a Men in Black who warned her to stop investigating them immediately. And then she continued having multiple people coming up to her, telling her that she needed to stop. So she had multiple experiences with these people who keep telling her to stop. In 1987, Philip Spencer found an alien creature.
What?
Yes.
Where at? Just hanging out somewhere or what?
I don't know, but
what?
He said he just.
That's crazy.
This story was from Britain.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I remember from the book. So he also experienced missing time during this encounter. Right. There was something unique about this because he had actually taken a photo of the alien.
Oh, weird.
Creature.
Okay.
He had an actual proof and evidence of it.
Okay.
So basically, he did hypnotic regression to try and figure out what was going on because that's
the thing exactly, and then they weren't sure.
UFOs,
yes, exactly.
Yes. So he remembered being taken by an aircraft and being examined.
Okay.
And then, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
He had all these memories, and then on a Friday evening in 1988, 2 Men in Black visited him, claiming to be from the Ministry of Defense.
Oh.
They had come to interview him about his UFO encounter. Spencer had only discussed his UFO experience with 3 other researchers, but these people apparently knew all about his experience, and they questioned him about specific parts. Spencer admitted to having a photograph, but claimed he was not in possession of it, and then they just suddenly left.
Huh. That's
they were
weird.
okay.
Yeah.
They were no longer interested in interviewing him, and they just left, even though he did have it.
Oh, so he lied to them. Oh, that was smart thinking, I guess, because he got to hang on to it.
He still had the whatever it's called.
The film. Oh, okay.
Yes, he still had the film from it. And then this is a more recent, so this is from the 2000s.
Oh, really?
So these are obviously just small snippets. There's a bunch of them. The book had a bunch of stories, but I kind of picked out the more interesting ones that I liked. So this was Raven Mindell. She is a cryptozoologist and writer and a radio host, and she was on a TV show apparently that was very popular. Yeah, she's Wiccan.
Is she an actress or what is she?
No, it was River Monsters.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that show. Yeah.
Show? And she was trying to hunt werewolves or something crazy.
Okay. Hey, you know what?
I don't know. It seemed pretty cool.
Hey.
I don't know. She sounded cool. That's why I included her. So on April 16th, 2 men dressed in black, the apartment across from where she was living. but there was no one that was living there currently. So
that's
that was
weird,
kind of weird. Yeah, so they got inside of a black Lincoln, and she tried to like make a joke with them while she was outside because they were outside at the same time, and they just like completely ignored her and kind of like stared at her.
Okay, that's creepy, weird.
And immediately backed out and drove off very fast. Following the encounter, they started having a lot more of weird experiences going on. Their telephone would start ringing, but like no one was on the other end of the line. And on April 19th, while trying to sleep, she was overwhelmed by the feeling of not wanting to research UFOs anymore, kind of like a psychological thing. Like she just felt like suddenly there was something telling her she needed to stop researching them. So 2 days after that, the men in black pulled up next to her while she was walking her dog, and they like unbuckled their seatbelt like they were gonna get out, and so she pulled her phone out and she started acting like she was talking on her phone, and they kind of got the hint, left. So weeks later, her family reported hearing whispers inside of her home.
What?
Just kind of scary.
Okay, weird.
Like she would hear whispers like they were inside.
Oh, weird.
And they found strange handprints on the mirrors when her daughter came out of the shower. Like she had, and then her daughter had like bruises all over her arms. They're like the same size as the handprints.
Oh, that's creepy.
That's like pretty scary.
Really?
But yeah, that was like her encounters with them, which is pretty crazy. Apparently Dan Aykroyd had an encounter.
I saw that somewhere. I forget what I was researching, but I did come across a story that Dan Aykroyd had an experience with the Men in Black.
Yes, so he did. It was a TV show he was about to be signing.
That's right. It was like one of those ones about like stuff like
UFO one,
and they canceled it on him.
And then yes, but he saw the Men in Black right before they canceled it. He had like they kind of like gave him a stare because he was about to go into the meeting to like get it all fixed, and then immediately after that he got told it was canceled after he had the Men in Black
we know that was the Men in Black. Did they threaten him, or do you think maybe they used their hocus
they didn't threaten
pocus?
Him, but they think they.
Do you think they used their like stuff and they made it so that they didn't want to do it anymore? You know what I mean? Like hypnotized them to think.
I'm guessing. I think it had to do. It didn't have to do with Dan Aykroyd specifically, but I think people higher up than him that were working on the project also.
Right. They didn't want the UFO information to get out. That's what it was.
Yeah, that happened in like 2000.
Yeah, that was recently. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's
crazy.
Yeah, Men in Black are definitely kind of lurking, and it connects in with a lot of other of the ones. Like I think they've been around Skinwalker Ranch also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember
major
hearing
UFO,
about that, yeah.
Like any sort of major UFO cases probably had a Men in Black show up. John Keel, he had a bunch of encounters with them while he was writing the Mothman Prophecies.
So what do these guys look
him.
like? Did anybody ever get a picture of them when they came to visit them or anything?
Okay, yes, that was actually in the book. There was some guy who claimed that he had a photo of them. They were at the UFO convention in the place in West Virginia I was just at, Charleston.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a part of the book, and it mentioned, so this Men in Black was kind of following them around, and he just kind of looked out of place. He went up to him and kind of confronted him, and he was like, "Why are you here?" And then the guy just ran off, and then he saw him again, and he like snapped a picture of him, and there's a picture of him that he claims is a Men in Black. We don't know. But normally they do evade. Oh, and there's also a video I saw of the Men in Black.
Is it the one where the two guys are walking into the hotel? Yes, I saw that too. That was weird. One. Yes, because they looked identical. That is the exact one I'm thinking of. Both looked identical.
Yes, the way that they looked very tall.
They looked very weird compared to everybody else.
And they like the way that they apparently the way that they dress and talk is just doesn't seem.
They were very stiff looking when they walked through the door on the footage that they had.
They're very, but even like people's accounts, they just don't seem
normal.
Like normal to. Like I said, that's why people speculate that they're not human.
That's crazy.
But yeah, that was my main stuff I researched.
Okay, cool.
For the UFOs.
Yeah.
A little tie-in with Mothman.
With Mothman and
my museum. Yeah. We'll have to post the photo of.
Well, that's cool.
But yeah, what did you do research?
All right. Well, this week I did my research on Athens Lunatic Asylum, which is in Athens, Ohio, on the property of the Ohio State University. This facility was open from 1874 to 1993, which is crazy to think about, that a facility that people that had mental problems was around for so long. That's over 100 years that they've been around.
Yeah.
During the time that it was open, it provided services to patients, including children, Civil War veterans, because of obviously, 1874 was when the Civil War was going on. They also took care of the mentally unwell. So anybody that had any type of mental condition that somebody claimed they or thought that they had. The site is best known for the infamous lobotomies that they would perform on people there. They also did hydrotherapy, which hydrotherapy is this idea that they had back then, that if they put somebody completely covered them in a tub of water with just their head sticking out, and they would make the water so hot, they thought that they could steam or cleanse the psychoness or the craziness out of them and help cure them that way. They also did electroshock, which we all know it's not really used too much anymore. Yeah, that's not good. Basically, they would send, certain amount of volts of electricity through your body directly into your brain to help you. So if you were having seizures, so you wouldn't have seizures. They would also use it to make sure that, you weren't talking to yourself, or, your 50 different personalities weren't coming out all the time. They also numerous paranormal sightings that have occurred over the years at this facility. I mean, when you have that much crazy stuff going on and people dying and people getting hurt or injured or mistreated, you're going to have a lot of paranormal activity. So the design of the building and the grounds that Insane Asylum was made from was by a doctor named Thomas Story Kirkbride. And Kirkbride was a 19th century physician who wrote a very famous book about mental hospital designs. And his idea was that if you made the design of the hospital to fit in with the surroundings, like that they would have these really beautiful park-like settings where they would have all this nature everywhere, that it would help the person not be mentally unstable anymore, that it would help cure them of their ailment. So he designed these buildings, and in particular the Lunatic Asylum in Athens. And his designs are recognized for their batwing design. So basically, the Athens Lunatic Asylum, there would be like a central building would be like the administrative building where people would come and be dropped off when they were being admitted. And then you would have a wing, a ward, or a section on either side of the main administrative building. And on the one side, they had the women, and on the other side, they had the men. Obviously, they didn't want them both together. But apparently, the original design of the building was only meant to house about 500 people at the time, okay? By the time they got done building this thing, it was so huge that they ended up having, like later on in the years, they ended up having 3 times the amount of people that they were supposed to have in there. So you had a lot of overcrowding going on. You had, a lot of people being thrown together into rooms, so you'd get a lot of fights and stuff. They also, this is pretty cool, when I was reading about it, over the years, this place grew, and it was basically its own working town at one point. They were farming on there. They had their own water and sewage system. I mean, it was basically, almost self-sustaining all on its own. One of the cool things was they had this large ceiling amusement hall. It was 2 stories high, so it took up 2 floors. And they could go down there and they could play games and stuff like that. It was kind of set up like a amusement park with different games and stuff. They also had the chapel on the property. The chapel still exists today. In fact, if you go to visit an art museum, and if you go there, you can actually still see the chapel today. Originally, it had 141 acres, but by the end, it eventually grew to 1,019 total acres. So this place was massive. Yeah, wow. It was pretty insane how big it was. Like I said, the hospital was first called the Athens Lunatic Asylum, and it officially began, or official operation of it began on January 9th, 1874. Within 2 years, it had already been renamed the Athens Hospital for the Insane. Some of the most interesting, or I guess disturbing causes that people would be admitted to the asylum for included everything from epilepsy to menopause. So if you're an older woman and you are experiencing menopause and we're having hot flashes and all that, your husband could say, oh, she's crazy, and they could admit you in there for that. That's messed up. They also had a lot of people that were alcoholics that would be admitted there for being crazy, which is really kind of messed up if you think about it, because it's an addiction, not a, mental thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like where you're, and tuberculosis. People were also stuck in there or put in there when they had tuberculosis. Isn't also
like as a disease, it's like airborne, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So imagine you've got all
tuberculosis.
Yes. So you got all these crazy people in there, and then you've got people with tuberculosis, and they were like, on the same floors together. So
together?
You've had
that doesn't make any sense.
I don't think so. You had rampant stuff, just floating around in the air. But yeah, tuberculosis is definitely an airborne disease, and they talked about that in the article that I was reading about it. But during the first 3 years of operation, the 3 leading causes of insanity for women, what they deemed was insanity in order for you to get admitted, this is awesome, was puerperal condition, which is basically something that's it was related to childbirth. So basically like postpartum, what we call today postpartum depression. So if you were experiencing or they call it the mommy blues, if you were experiencing any of that back then, you would have been thrown in to the asylum and complained that you were crazy. The other one was the change of life, like changes for women of their, going from, giving birth to going through, menopause or whatever. And this is my favorite one. Menstrual derangements was also what women could get thrown in for. So if you're having like really bad cramps, or how sometimes you get a little snippy when you get on your period, you just grumpy because, you kind of hurt and stuff. They could throw you into the asylum for that and lock you up for years and say that you're crazy.
That's dumb.
I know. So you could get like electroshock and crap for that. That's messed up. That's how messed up our society was. Or men in general, or I guess you should say, because a lot of these, let's face it, men were mostly doctors back then. There was not a lot of women doctors back then. But by the 1950s, the hospital had a total of 78 buildings. I mean, can you imagine how massive this place was? And they also were treating about, like I told you, about 1,800 patients, when originally the design only called for the max, like 500 people total in the their facility. By the 1960s, the total square feet, 660,888 square feet. And at the time, its population peaked at 2,000. And like I said, that was like 3 times the maximum capacity that place could handle. So you had a lot of people being thrown in together. So you could have somebody that was in there with like menstrual cramps, you know what I mean? And there was somebody that's got like 6 different voices in their head telling them to do stuff. I mean, it's kind of messed up. But after the 60s, the number of patients would decline over the next several decades. Also, lobotomies during the early 1940s, lobotomies started happening a lot. In case nobody knows what a lobotomy is, basically it was a procedure where they would take an ice pick type instrument and they would maybe give you some drugs, maybe not, or they would just give you something to dope you up a little bit, some good psychotic drugs. And then they would take the ice pick and a rubber mallet and put it up to your eyeball, and they would get right above your eye, and they would hit it in there, they would mush it around so that your brain would like get scrambled a little bit. So they said that helped fix people, but all it did was make.
How?
Yeah, that seriously, that's all it was some dude taking an ice pick into your eye and.
Oh, is that ice pick?
Yes, that's basically what that was. Yes, that's all it is.
Where's the science?
Thank you. There was no science behind it. In fact, this is the crazy part. The guy that invented the lobotomy, or he didn't invent it. He actually stole the idea from another person, but he just made it really quick. Like the total amount of time it took to do a lobotomy, by the way, was like 10 minutes tops. So in 10 minutes, he could scramble your brains and make you like totally, like a 2-year-old. Like you couldn't do anything basically after he did this. And so after he did it, okay, he would talk to the patient for like 2 minutes and, they'll be like, oh, thank you, doctor. I feel so much better now. And they would like leave. But then like days later, some of them would be paralyzed because of how he did it. He messed it, because it's not an exact thing. He's just going in there and taking the sharp metal object and just whooshing it around in your brain, mushing everything up. But anyway, by the 1960s, lobotomies were kind of going away. In fact, they're no longer performed anywhere in the United States because of how barbaric and they're not just they've come to find out that it's not worth it. It doesn't really help. The lobotomies were on their way out. Freeman, that crazy dude that did the 10-minute lobotomy. He's fucking nut. He was a nutburger. I know what I was going to say about that. He never had a degree, Kara. He wasn't even like a licensed doctor. And he was just, and everybody thought it was the greatest thing he ever did. And they let him do it for years. He performed over like 1,000 lobotomies on people. And he wasn't even a certified doctor. That's just insane. All right. So, Dr. Freeman was the doctor that was performing all these lobotomies on people. In fact, he performed over 1,000 lobotomies in his time that he was doing all these types of operations. But he's the one that mainstreamed the lobotomy to make it a 10-minute procedure. He was not a doctor at the Athens Asylum, but they did perform them there. And over the years, they began to realize that they really didn't do much of anything, and they stopped doing them. When I was talking about the land and where it was, that by the 1960s, they had this huge amount of land and all these buildings and stuff. But they also have 3 graveyards on site because, well, what happens when you have all these people coming into your place? They all are going to die eventually, and you got to have somewhere to put all these people. So they started burying people that would die while they were in their care. And let's face it, the type of care that people had back then was not the best care. They had 3 graveyards that they were using to fill up with people when they passed away. Apparently, there were over 2,000 unmarked graves at this place because families would not claim the bodies. So until 1943, all the dead only had a stone with a number on it to mark their grave. It was not until later on that they had ledger that had all the names of anybody that died in the facility. And there's only one in existence that they had to use that had over 1,700 names of the 2,000 people that were buried on site. So there's still some graves that they do not know who that was that got buried there. 1972 was the last year's any patient was buried at the cemetery. To this day, though, the cemetery is maintained by the Ohio Department of Mental Health. It's not run by the Ohio State University people. In 1977, the Athens Asylum made the news in a huge way when it housed multiple personality rapist Billy Milligan. Now, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but Netflix actually just did a show on him called Monsters Inside. Basically, this guy was pretty messed up. It was a very highly publicized case. Milligan was found to have committed several felonies, including armed robbery, kidnapping, and 3 rapes on the Ohio State University campus. When this was going on, his defense had a psychological evaluation done of him, and they diagnosed him with multiple personality disorder, which had been happening since his childhood, they said. So they say that he's had this multiple personality disorder since he was little, and it was an excuse for why he doesn't remember killing people. Now, I started to watch some of this, and it's really weird to hear him talk about what, how things happen. Like, they'll ask him, well, did you do this to this person? Do you remember doing that to that person? And he would be like, no, I don't remember that. I was asleep when that happened. And that, he would talk about like how one of his other personalities did it. It wasn't him. He was, he would never do anything like that to anybody. He would never hurt anybody. When he was in having his court case heard, like I said, they discovered that he had all these different personalities. He was the first person diagnosed with multiple person disorder, and that was his defense. And this is the first time that a person used that as defense and got acquitted for a major crime using that whole reason. Wow. Yeah. So that was a big deal back then. Huh. After
like the
what?
Was it like an insanity plea?
Yeah, basically they ended up claiming that he was insane because, he's got all these people in his head telling him to do stuff, and they would like come out, as different people. And it's weird. I don't know if anybody's ever seen anybody that has multiple personalities, that they would talk like when they would interview him as a different personality, he would talk like his whole demeanor would change for each personality. It's really it's kind of cool to watch, but it's also kind of strange. And like, some of them were like children, so he would talk like a little kid. Some of them were adults or women, or you know what I mean? So his whole persona would change when he became that voice.
There's a movie about that.
Yeah, and you know what? Funny you should mention that. The movie Split, which was by M. Night Shyamalan. Yes, Split. That is actually based off of his life.
I was curious if that
was based off his life. So, yeah, that's kind of neat to think that, well, I guess not neat, but it's interesting. I know. It's just fascinating to think that, something that a person that was in the insane asylum actually was, used to make a movie, a fictional movie. Now, they did, obviously, M. Night Shyamalan, took some liberties with the whole storyline. Yeah. Not all of that is true. Some of that's, like, kind of exaggerated a lot. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that, that movie Split was based off of that too. So after he got acquitted basically on an insanity plea, he was then sent to several state-run hospitals for the next 10 years or so, they said. And he was actually in the Athens Asylum. While he was at these hospitals, he had 10 different personalities, okay? When he committed the murders and all that, there was 10. But later on, as they started, trying to help him and stuff, they found out he had 14 more personalities. Now, a lot of this was said was because of his mom. I guess his mom was very abusive to him and when he was little, and that's why he had these different... He would use these different personalities as a way to cope with what was going on to him. It doesn't mean that what he did was right, but that's what they're saying. So after a decade of getting moved around to different facilities, he was finally discharged. It turns out he died of cancer in a nursing home in Columbus, Ohio. That's up near you, Kara.
Great.
In December 12th of 2014, and he was 59 years old. So, it gets better. So the following year at this hospital, they were in the news again for another newsworthy thing that happened. There was a patient there by the name of Margaret Schilling who disappeared on December 1st, 1978. Now, nobody knew where she was or where she went. When she left, there was nothing. It was almost like she just vanished. Looked everywhere for her. It was not until January 12th, 1979, which was 42 days later, that her body was found by a maintenance worker in a locked, long abandoned ward that was once used for patients with infectious illness. They said that tests showed that she died of heart failure. But when they found her, she was found completely naked with her clothing folded next to her. And even more interesting is that when, after they removed her body, there was a permanent stain on the floor of her body. So basically there is a very clear imprint of her hair and her body that it can still be seen on the floor today, that even though there have been numerous attempts over the years to clean it up, it's still there. And I've seen pictures of it. It's pretty crazy. It's kind of gross. To this day, nobody knows how she died, but it's weird the way she disappeared. Like, they don't know where she was when she disappeared, if that makes any sense. Like, where she was hanging out at. If she found some place, to hide there. Although they had all those empty buildings. So, I'm sure she could have been hanging out there with nobody knowing she was there, since they were all kind of locked up and stuff. So then in 1981, the hospital had fewer than 300 patients. And most of the buildings were now abandoned. In 1988, the facility and the grounds, except for the cemetery, were basically deeded over to the Ohio University. The Athens Center, by this time, and we're talking 1993, the name had changed again for the Athens Lunatic Asylum. It was now called the Athens Center, and they basically dealt with behavioral issues at this point, and people that had drug and alcohol abuse going on. But in 1993, they officially closed the doors to the facility, with the remaining patients were transferred to other facilities that were nearby.
I thought it was turned into what is it?
I'm getting to that. Calm down. We're not there. So basically once that happened, today the building is used for offices for several different departments. There's also, like I said, the chapel's still available. They use that for functions. There is a art museum there, which we need to go check out, because apparently there's some ghost activity that goes on in there too. So that's all that's left, is basically the one kind of big building. All the other parts of the asylum have been shut down because they're deteriorating so badly that if you were to go in there, you could get hurt possibly, or in use for almost, over 100 years. So, as you can guess, because, some of the buildings and the cemeteries are supposedly haunted. One of the most famous ghosts is our friend Margaret Schilling, who I told you about, who her body, you can still see her body where she died. Her body left the prints on the hospital floor. You apparently can see her in a window up on the second floor looking down to the first floor where her body was found. They say that she has also been seen attempting to escape the facility. The people will see her outside walking, her spirit. She's been seen wandering various parts of the building at night. There's also some other patients have been seen standing in empty wings of the hospital. People can hear disembodied voices. Squeaking gurneys. They can hear people being wheeled to go get a lobotomy. You can hear the squeak of the gurney getting pushed. They see strange lights sometimes in the hallways there. And they can hear screams echoing through the walls. Okay, I'm sorry, but if I heard a scream, more frightening than that are rumors that spirits of patients that had been shackled in the basement. Apparently they like to shackle patients down in the basement of the facility when they, as a means to get them to calm down, I guess, they would shackle them to the wall, or if they were being too obnoxious, they would do that. And they say that the spirits are thought to, that had died or suffered at the hands of the staff, live down there, and sometimes you can see dark shadows and stuff if you go down there. The cemetery is also said to be haunted, with shadowy people, and strange lights can be seen at nighttime. And also in the cemetery, when I was reading, there's a section of the cemetery, and one of them where the graves kind of like curve or arch or make a circle, and they say that that's a witch's circle, and that witches will meet there and have ceremonies and stuff. That's all I have about the Athens Lunatic Asylum.
They have a cool Halloween party.
Right? Can you imagine? I bet that place is bumping.
No, literally. The Athens is the biggest Halloween. Because me and Katie went one year.
Oh,
like,
okay.
they have it's a huge Halloween scene. Like, people from all over travel. Like, thousands of people go to Athens because the university there.
Right.
I went one year.
It's a big party school anyway.
But I saw the place when we went there.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Like, literally, the entire streets all the streets are shut down, and people are just flooding the streets, and they have so many activities.
Really? Huh. Sounds neat. We should go there one year.
I mean, yeah. It's more a college frat thing. Like, I don't know if you would enjoy it.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
I was in college. Me and Katie were in college when we went. We stayed with one of her college friends.
Okay.
But it's like, it's what it's known for. Ohio, or is it the Ohio? Which one is it? Ohio University?
It's Ohio State University. That's what it's called. That's a big party school, you know. So
that's what I'm saying.
Surprise
Halloween.
Me. Right. Well, yeah. Come on, wouldn't you? Especially with all the spooky stories about your school.
Like, literally, the fucking college hosts a huge Halloween party.
There's I know I've heard stories about one of the dorms there. There's a supposed rumor that one of the students there committed suicide on the grounds, and that people in certain rooms in the particular building that she met her demise in, they say that some of the rooms there are haunted by her, like weird things happen and stuff. So anyway, that's the story of the Athens Lunatic Asylum. So yeah, so we learned that lobotomies are no longer a thing, which I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to know that they no longer do those anymore, because it's been proven that it really doesn't help. And besides, we have better ways of helping people with mental disorders now with medicine and stuff. Like back then, they were just giving people, like they would just do whatever they thought sounded good, and you know. But next week, or I guess I should say this weekend, we are going to be going someplace really cool for one of our bonus episodes that will be out the following weekend. So stay tuned for that. It's
similar to the story, or not like similar, but it's along the same line.
Yep.
You were talking about today.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. We're going to be going to Louisville. We'll give you a little hint. We're going to Louisville this weekend. So
yep.
Stay tuned.
Oh, there was one thing I wanted to say about. There have been sightings of women in black. Too.
Oh, what? Really?
Not just men in black.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yes, they're not as often, but the book did cover a few stories of women in black encounters. Not as many, but there were a few.
So do they look weird
just
too, like
to
the
clarify.
men do? Or are they tall?
Yes, they have the similar kind of. They're all dressed in black suits.
Oh, really? Weird. Huh.
But yeah, that was another. I forgot. I wanted to make sure I got that because I was thinking about it earlier.
Okay, cool.
But yeah. But if you enjoyed our podcast today, follow us on Instagram at Two Scaredy Cats Podcast, and please be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get discovered. And tune in next week for a new episode. And to all our scaredy cats and kittens out there, remember, curiosity didn't kill these two scaredy cats.